Breaking news to tell you about right now in the search for Malaysia Airlines Flight 370, a piece of wreckage from a Boeing 777, likely belonging to that Malaysian flight, has been found off the coast of Mozambique.
More than a decade has passed. Despite the world's largest search efforts, MH370 and its 239 passengers remain aviation history's most haunting mystery. Now a new hunt utilizing robot and AI technology has been approved, betting tens of millions of dollars and all credibility on a no-find, no-pay deal. Failure would not only mean financial loss, but also the complete extinction of the last hope for uncovering the truth. Recently, artificial intelligence, AI, has charted an entirely different final flight path, leading to a remote and impossible area in the southwestern Indian Ocean. This location has never been explored in any previous search. If the AI-mapped route is accurate, it implies that the entire world, with all its experts and cutting-edge technology, has been searching the wrong area for over 10 years. Why could a computer algorithm pinpoint what humans and traditional methods could not? The story of MH370 has returned to the world stage because of one company, Ocean Infinity. After more than a decade of false leads and fruitless hunts, the Malaysian government approved a new mission in late 2024 under a deal that is both unusual and bold. The arrangement is called No Find, No Fee, which means Ocean Infinity will not be paid a single dollar unless the missing Boeing 777 is located. If they succeed, however, the reward could reach up to $70 million, a figure that shows how desperate authorities are to close this case. This high-risk contract has raised expectations worldwide because, unlike the past, Ocean Infinity now has technology that was unimaginable in 2014. At the center of this renewed mission is a fleet of robotic ships and advanced autonomous underwater vehicles, known as AUVs. These machines are designed to travel thousands of meters below the surface, moving through pitch-black waters where no human diver can survive. They can scan wide areas of the seabed using sonar, high-resolution cameras, and environmental sensors, and they can do so without a tether to the ship above. During the earlier search in 2018, Ocean Infinity used a similar approach, but the tools were less refined. This time the vehicles are faster, smarter, and able to endure extreme conditions for longer periods. Their independence allows them to cover more ground with fewer interruptions, which is crucial because the search zone lies in one of the most remote and hostile corners of the planet. The vessel leading the operation is Armada 7806, a massive ship that acts as the mothership for the AUVs. In February 2025, it departed from Mauritius and reached the search area along the 7th Arc, the curve in the southern Indian Ocean where experts believe MH370's final signals were recorded. The team divided the operation into two phases. The first phase concentrated on filling gaps left by earlier missions, places where sonar data had been incomplete because of steep underwater slopes and tool malfunctions. These areas had haunted researchers for years because everyone knew they could still hide the wreckage. After resupplying in Fremantle, the ship began the second phase on March 11th. This stage was different because it expanded the search beyond the original plan. Armada 7806 suddenly changed course on March 10th, moving away from a zone already scanned and heading southwest into uncharted waters. Analysts noticed this detour on satellite maps and wondered why it had happened. Some believe the change was guided by new data, possibly even by artificial intelligence models that had reanalyzed the flight's path. Whatever the reason, it showed that Ocean Infinity was willing to break from tradition and follow evidence into unexplored territory. For families who had endured more than 10 years of silence, even a small adjustment like this was a spark of hope. The scale of the challenge cannot be overstated. Between 2014 and 2017, Malaysia, Australia, and China had already searched an area of nearly 120,000 square kilometers, one of the largest marine hunts in history. In 2018, Ocean Infinity added another 112,000 square kilometers, again without success. To put those numbers in perspective, the combined area is larger than the entire state of New Mexico. Searching such an immense, hostile seafloor is like trying to find a single coin in the middle of the desert. Except the desert is pitch black, miles deep, and constantly shifting with currents. That is why the current mission feels so different. With robotics, unmanned vessels, and data-driven guidance, the operation has the chance to be sharper and more decisive than anything attempted before. Yet technology alone does not explain why so many people are watching this mission closely. The no-fine, no-fee contract places enormous pressure on Ocean Infinity. If they fail, they earn nothing. But if they succeed, they prove that advanced robotics and data analytics can succeed where years of human-led expeditions have failed. Every movement of Armada 7806 is tracked by journalists, aviation experts, and even ordinary citizens on social media who follow maritime maps. The stakes are not just financial or technical. Every sonar scan, every robotic dive is more than an engineering task. It is a step toward giving answers to people who have lived with questions for over a decade. That human dimension is what makes this search different. The world is not simply chasing a wreck, it is chasing the truth behind one of the most haunting mysteries in aviation. If Ocean Infinity represents the muscle of this mission, then artificial intelligence is its brain. But how exactly has AI redrawn MH370's last journey? And why does it lead us to a place that seems impossible? Artificial intelligence has become the brain of the new MH370 search, and its impact is already rewriting what investigators thought they knew. For years, experts used radar signals, ocean drift models, and eyewitness accounts to try to piece together the plane's final moments, but every method left wide gaps. AI changes that by analyzing massive amounts of data at speeds no human team could manage. Instead of working with fragments, it builds a full picture of the possible routes, using everything from satellite communication logs to estimated fuel burn. The result is a flight path that points to a place so remote and so unexpected that many call it impossible. The process began with deep learning systems trained on thousands of real flight patterns. These models were fed data from Inmarsat satellite pings, autopilot behavior, and engine reports. AI could then simulate millions of variations in how the plane might have traveled after losing contact. By comparing each scenario against known signals, the models narrowed down the most likely path. According to analysts, this new trajectory does not match earlier arcs that guided the 2014 to 2018 searches. Instead, it stretches further southwest into waters rarely studied and almost untouched by human presence. This is what makes the AI discovery chilling. If the plane truly lies there, it means the world has been looking in the wrong place for more than a decade. What makes AI convincing is not only its speed, but also its ability to connect details overlooked by people. For example, fuel usage patterns matched with satellite handshake intervals show that the aircraft may have flown longer on autopilot than believed. Small adjustments in the algorithm revealed how tiny shifts in altitude or course could place the wreck hundreds of kilometers away from traditional estimates. These calculations are complex, but the outcome is simple: a narrow search zone that may finally hold the answers. Even Ocean Infinity's decision to redirect Armada 7806 in March 2025 is suspected to be linked to AI analysis, suggesting the company trusts the technology enough to change course mid-mission. Skeptics remain cautious, pointing out that algorithms are only as strong as the data they process. Some argue that missing or corrupted signals could lead AI to a false conclusion. Yet the same technology has already shown surprising accuracy in other fields. such as predicting solar storms or reconstructing complex weather events. That is why many believe it could also solve aviation's most haunting puzzle. If AI is right, then the next phase of exploration may bring the first concrete evidence of MH370's fate. For families waiting since March 2014, this possibility is more than scientific. It is emotional proof that hope has not run out. The bigger question, however, is what happens when new data collides with old assumptions. Will the controversial WSPR method, which tracks radio disturbances, support the AI's path, or will it spark another wave of debate? If artificial intelligence has drawn the map, then WSPR may act as the compass. But can a fragile radio signal really trace the ghost of a vanished plane across the skies? Among the most unusual tools in the new search is something few people outside the radio community have ever heard of. WSPR, or Weak Signal Propagation Reporter. At first it may sound like an unlikely ally in solving an aviation mystery because WSPR was not built to track aircraft at all. It was designed for amateur radio operators to measure how far a faint signal could travel across the world. Thousands of these signals bounce through the atmosphere every hour, creating a constant web of transmissions. Yet some experts believe that as MH370 crossed the skies, its massive frame disturbed these fragile radio paths, leaving behind invisible footprints that can now be studied. The idea is both simple and extraordinary. Every time a plane disrupts a WSPR transmission, it creates a tiny echo, a distortion that shows where the disturbance occurred. By combining these disturbances from multiple stations, researchers claim they can reconstruct a rough flight path, much like following ripples across a pond. In the case of MH370, investigators studying archived WSPR data identified several unusual disruptions during the night of March 8, 2014. When these were mapped, the points appeared to line up with a journey that continued deep into the southern Indian Ocean, close to where AI has recently pointed. To believers, this overlap is more than a coincidence. Still, WSPR is one of the most controversial methods ever linked to the MH370 case. Critics argue that radio signals are affected by countless variables, from solar storms to weather conditions, and that interpreting them as proof of an aircraft's passage is risky. They warn that what looks like a trace could just be background noise. Supporters respond by pointing out that similar techniques have been tested with modern flights, and that the patterns often match recorded positions. This debate has divided scientists, creating a sharp contrast between those who see WSPR as a breakthrough and those who dismiss it as pseudoscience. The tension between hope and doubt has made WSPR one of the most talked about pieces of evidence since debris first washed ashore in 2015. Ocean Infinity has chosen not to ignore the method. Instead, they treat WSPR as one more layer of data to guide their search. By combining it with AI analysis and older drift models, the company hopes to cross-check potential zones until a clearer picture emerges. This open approach reflects the desperation of the case. After all, every other strategy has failed, so rejecting a tool that might offer even a slight advantage seems reckless. For families waiting for answers, the use of WSPR is not about scientific perfection, but about exhausting every possible lead. Even if the method only narrows the search by a few hundred kilometers, that could mean the difference between success and another empty expedition. It suggests that the plane's presence lingered in the airwaves long after it vanished from radar, like a ghost leaving behind whispers no one understood at the time. To many, this transforms the tragedy into something almost otherworldly. For all its promise, WSPR raises new questions rather than closing old ones. If the data really confirms a southern route, why did earlier searches so close to that region come up empty? Could the signals be pointing further than investigators dared to look, or do they highlight a gap in how past searches were conducted? The controversy forces us to face a larger truth. MH370 has always been a puzzle where every clue deepens the mystery instead of solving it. If WSPR provides a fragile trail through the air, then the deeper mystery lies in what actually brought the plane down. Was it the hand of the pilot, a sudden technical failure, or something more deliberate? One of the most unsettling parts of the MH370 story is the trail of signals that continued long after the plane vanished from radar. These were not normal radio calls or distress messages, but silent handshakes exchanged between the aircraft and a satellite high above Earth. For 7 hours after contact was lost, the system continued to send short bursts of data, indicating that the jet was still powered and in motion. In a case filled with gaps, these signals became the only thread investigators could follow. The first puzzle came from the SATCOM unit, the satellite communication system installed on the Boeing 777. Records show that at some point during the flight, this system was manually switched off and then later switched back on. In standard operations, such a system remains active for the entire journey. So this unusual cycle shocked investigators. If it was intentional, it suggests someone in the cockpit made the choice to disable the link and then, for reasons unknown, restored it. If it were mechanical, it points to a failure severe enough to cut communications, yet oddly selective because the rest of the aircraft kept flying normally. Neither explanation is satisfying, which is why the reboot of SATCOM still feels like one of the darkest pieces of the puzzle. A second mystery appeared when Malaysia's ground-based automatic reporting system detected a burst of unusual activity. It looked like a sudden stop followed by a restart, as if the aircraft's communication circuits had been reset. Analysts could not agree whether this was a sign of tampering or simply a glitch, but the timing aligned with the period when SATCOM went dark. These overlapping signals deepened the sense that something hidden was happening on board. The so-called handshake signals also revealed something else. Their timing suggested the plane continued along a steady route into the southern Indian Ocean, far from busy air corridors. Was it guided there by deliberate control, or did an autopilot carry it aimlessly into the void? Each scenario is terrifying in its own way, either pointing to a chilling act of intent or to a failure that left an aircraft flying blindly until its fuel ran dry. Even debris discovered years later did little to resolve the signals. To this day, the satellite handshakes remain the closest thing we have to a final conversation between MH370 and the world. They speak of persistence, of flight beyond reason, and of a ghost machine that kept whispering into the night sky. The true weight of these signals is not only technical, but symbolic. They remind us that the plane did not disappear instantly. For hours it lived on in silence, moving across oceans. That lonely journey has become the heart of the mystery. The moment when science records activity, but human understanding fails. If the strange signals keep the mystery alive, the final impact is what gives it power. What lessons does this ghost flight leave behind, and why does it still haunt our skies even after more than a decade? Every great mystery fuels speculation, and MH370 has produced more theories than almost any other disaster in modern history. Because no single piece of evidence has ever explained the disappearance, experts and the public have tried to fill the silence with their own answers. Some explanations seem rational, others more disturbing, and a few cross into the realm of conspiracy. Together they reflect the confusion and fear that surround the case, and they show how fragile trust becomes when a jetliner can vanish without warning. The theory most often discussed is that of deliberate action by the captain, Zahari Ahmad Shah. Investigators discovered that his home flight simulator contained a deleted route almost identical to the one MH370 is believed to have taken. That path ended in the southern Indian Ocean, far from any airport, with the altitude set unusually low. Supporters of this idea argue that no one else on board had the knowledge to carry out such a plan. They also point to his personal life, which was troubled by a failing marriage and political frustration. In their view, the long turn over the Strait of Malacca, which allowed the plane to fly past his hometown of Penang, may have been a final goodbye. Yet the story is not that simple. Friends and family have denied he was suicidal, and some researchers claim the simulator route was just one of many practice flights, not a hidden confession. This leaves the theory hanging between possibility and doubt. Another explanation is mechanical failure. Aircraft are built with layers of backup systems, but history shows that even the most advanced machines can fail. Some believe a sudden fire in the cockpit or cargo hold could have knocked out communications and filled the cabin with smoke. Others suggest a loss of cabin pressure may have starved passengers and crew of oxygen, leaving them unconscious while the plane flew on autopilot until fuel ran out. Similar tragedies have occurred before, such as the 1999 crash of a Learjet carrying golfer Payne Stewart, where everyone lost consciousness long before impact. The weakness of this idea is that no clear evidence of fire damage has been found on debris, and the long-controlled flight path seems too precise for a ghost plane. Still, it remains one of the less sinister possibilities. The idea of hijacking has been raised since the first day. With 239 lives on board, it seemed natural to suspect terrorism or organized crime. Media outlets pointed to the fact that 2 passengers were traveling with stolen passports, but further investigation revealed no links to extremist groups. Authorities also searched the backgrounds of crew members and passengers, yet found no credible signs of a plot. If the plane had been seized, why was there no claim of responsibility, no demand, no message? A hijacking without a motive feels hollow, which is why this theory has lost strength over time. Another possibility is that MH370 was shot down by mistake. Civilian planes have been destroyed before in tragic accidents, such as Iran Air Flight 655 in 1988 and Korean Airlines Flight 007 in 1983. Some argue that MH370 might have strayed into sensitive military airspace, triggering a deadly response. This speculation often points to the U.S. base on Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean. According to conspiracy believers, the plane was either intercepted and forced to land there or destroyed to protect secret operations. However, no government has ever admitted to such an action, and no proof has surfaced. While the theory remains popular in internet discussions, most aviation experts dismiss it as unlikely. Beyond these main ideas lie more speculative claims. Some authors have blamed secret patents, suggesting that high-value technology carried by Freescale Semiconductor employees on board made the plane a target. Others have pointed to cyber attacks, arguing that the aircraft systems could have been hacked remotely and taken over. A handful of commentators have even pushed supernatural explanations, from UFO abductions to black holes, though scientists have repeatedly rejected such notions. These theories may sound extreme, but they reveal the desperation people feel when logic cannot close the case. The truth may not fit neatly into a single box. It could be that MH370 experienced a mechanical issue, followed by human decisions that turned tragedy into mystery. It could also be that vital clues were lost in the first chaotic weeks of the investigation, leaving us with a puzzle that can never be solved with certainty. What is undeniable is that the longer the wreck remains hidden, the more these theories will multiply. Each unanswered question invites a new possibility, and each possibility makes the real story harder to uncover. Yet all these theories share one weakness: they cannot explain the silent signals that continued after the plane vanished from radar. If the plane was destroyed quickly, why did those signals continue? If it was left drifting on autopilot, who turned the systems off and then on again? These signals are the ghostly fingerprints of MH370, and they may be the key to understanding what really happened. But can fragments of invisible data tell us more than wreckage ever could? One of the most unsettling parts of the MH370 story is the trail of signals that continued long after the plane vanished from radar. These were not normal radio calls or distress messages, but silent handshakes exchanged between the aircraft and a satellite high above Earth. For 7 hours after contact was lost, the system kept sending short bursts of data, proving the jet was still powered and still moving. In a case filled with gaps, these signals became the only thread investigators could follow, and they raised more questions than they answered. The first puzzle came from the SATCOM unit, the satellite communication system installed on the Boeing 777. Records show that at some point during the flight, this system was manually switched off and then later switched back on. In standard operations, such a system remains active for the entire journey, so this unusual cycle shocked investigators. If it was intentional, it suggests someone in the cockpit made the choice to disable the link and then, for reasons unknown, restored it. If it was mechanical, it points to a failure severe enough to cut communications, yet oddly selective, because the rest of the aircraft kept flying normally. Neither explanation is satisfying, which is why the reboot of SATCOM still feels like one of the darkest pieces of the puzzle. A second mystery appeared when Malaysia's ground-based automatic reporting system detected a burst of unusual activity. It looked like a sudden stop followed by a restart, as if the aircraft's communication circuits had been reset. Analysts could not agree whether this was a sign of tampering or simply a glitch, but the timing aligned with the period when SATCOM went dark. These overlapping signals deepened the sense that something hidden was happening on board, something more complex than a silent mechanical drift. The so-called handshake signals also revealed something else. Their timing suggested the plane continued along a steady route into the southern Indian Ocean, far from busy air corridors. Was it guided there by deliberate control, or did an autopilot carry it aimlessly into the void? Each scenario is terrifying in its own way, either pointing to a chilling act of intent or to a failure that left an aircraft flying blindly until its fuel ran dry. Even debris discovered years later did little to resolve the signals. To this day, the satellite handshakes remain the closest thing we have to a final conversation between MH370 and the world. They speak of persistence, of flight beyond reason, and of a ghost machine that kept whispering into the night sky. The true weight of these signals is not only technical, but symbolic. They remind us that the plane did not disappear instantly. For hours, it lived on in silence, moving across oceans. That lonely journey has become the heart of the mystery, the moment when science records activity, but human understanding fails. If the strange signals keep the mystery alive, the final impact is what gives it power. What lessons does this ghost flight leave behind, and why does it still haunt our skies even after more than a decade? The disappearance of MH370 has become more than an aviation mystery. It is now a symbol of how fragile our sense of security can be. Despite satellites circling the Earth and ships scanning the oceans, a modern jet carrying 239 lives simply slipped away. Each failed search has reminded us that even in an age of advanced technology, nature and silence can still hide the truth. The case has left scars not only on the families who wait for answers, but also on the wider world, which still struggles to understand how something so large could vanish so completely. Ocean Infinity's new mission shows that humanity is not ready to give up. With robotic fleets, artificial intelligence, and even controversial tools like WSPR, we are pushing science to its limits. Every sonar scan and every line of code is a step toward breaking the silence that has haunted this story. If the wreck is ever found, it could answer questions about safety, accountability, and the limits of our current systems. Yet the ghost of MH370 still lingers. The unanswered signals, the strange course changes, and the empty ocean remind us that the skies are not fully ours to control. This tragedy forces us to accept that even in the 21st century, mysteries remain, and they carry the power to unsettle us. The final resting place of MH370 may still be waiting beneath the waves, but the lessons it has already taught are clear. If a plane can vanish without a trace in our modern world, what other secrets might still be hiding in the spaces we believe we understand?